Looking for a bit of inspiration, I cracked open this absolute 90s classic, How to Make Wargames Terrain. A real relic from another era of Games Workshop. If you ever get the chance to snag a copy of it, do it. It's packed with great ideas. To decide what to build, I decided to roll some d10s and let the dice gods decide. And they chose stone walls, so stone walls it is. I've had an idea rattling around in the back of my head for a while now, and I wanted a way to churn these out in batches, aiming for around 10 minutes per wall. I started by making a couple of simple forms in 7-inch and 4-inch lengths, then using some baking paper, which supposedly superglue isn't meant to stick to, I layered in some 10mm blue stone gravel with small drops of superglue. A little tip here is not to go overboard with the glue, because you need far less of it than you think, and it makes a surprisingly strong bond. The stone itself is just 10mm minus, blue metal we call it here in Australia, or just drainage gravel. I then washed it thoroughly once I got it home, basically just put it in a bucket of water and pump water through with a hose till all the fines come out of it, and then I let it dry. I think I bought a 20 kilo bag, filled up this giant container, and still have probably 3/4 of that 20 kilo bag left over. One bag will last you a very, very long time. The next day it was time to demold, and it turns out superglue absolutely does stick to baking paper. So after burning off a few stubborn bits with a lighter, we were back in business. Now for the secret ingredient, bog spackle filler. Whatever suspicious name it's sold in under where you live, grab some from your local big box store. The whole trick is that these are rubble walls, held together with mortar or concrete as it were. This negates the tediousness of stacking the walls neatly. This style of wall has been around forever, 3,000 or 4,000 years as it is. You can find these in ancient Egypt through to Roman times, etc., who were famous for using concrete. The process couldn't be simpler. Simply work the filler into every crack and crevice, then come back with a damp sponge and wipe away the excess. You're left with all the mortar exactly where you want it. After about half an hour, it's firm enough to trace around onto some 1mm styrene sheet. Score the outline with a hobby knife, snap it clean, and give the edges a quick sand, and you've got the perfect base. You'd be surprised just how complex a shape you can get away with when you're scoring and snapping out on this styrene sheet. And if it gets too tricky, you can always just use some side cutters to snap out some bits and bobs. Once the wall is glued down, I grab my container of gritty offcuts and sprinkle some texture around the base to blend everything together. Then I also use a combination of watered down PVA glue and isopropyl alcohol to make sure it's all locked in and will never budge. With the filler fully dry, I give the whole thing a coat of Xander dust. Then I randomly pick out a few stones in different earthy colours to create those natural variations you'd see in real stonework. Some green, blue, and red as it were. Once that's dry, everything gets a heavy dry brush, probably 2 or 3 times over in fact. Now for the magic. Normally, I'd paint the walls dark grey and then spend ages building up lighter dry brush layers. But I've found a shortcut. A generous coat of Drakenhof Nightshade over the white gives you about 99% of the same result for roughly 10% of the effort. It's a no-brainer. Once that's dry, I give it a very, very light dry brush just to hit the very tips and peaks of the stones, and then I dunk the whole lot into my homemade necro sponge, the acrylic kind, and then let it dry again. For the moss, I'm using Dirty Down Moss Effect. One important tip with the Dirty Down products is that they work best when there's a temperature difference. I kept this bottle in my pocket for at least an hour before using it. Once the moss effect has developed, I knock it back a bit. I use a stiff, damp, not dripping brush and remove it from the high spots as it were, anywhere that I think that the moss would naturally be growing. One of the natural wonders as it were of these Dirty Down products is that they contain salt, which allows you to reactivate them with water, and you can get all sorts of different effects. And you can't really go wrong here, just practice and get into it. You can always reapply more later. As a final flourish, I tuck a few grass tufts into the nooks and crannies all around the base and up and over the walls. Anywhere you imagine an abandoned stone wall, some grass will be growing, which is basically all over it. I just stick some there. Easy to use, bit of PVA glue, dab it on with some tweezers, and you're done. And that, my friends, is a finished and perfectly serviceable piece of terrain. It ended up being a touch over 10 minutes of hands-on work per item, but I reckon if you were to get into it yourself and started pumping them out, you could get it down a bit quicker than that. I'm really happy with how they turned out. Just let me know down below what you would have done different. Till next time, hobby friends, keep crafting.